The tragic death of Kurt Cobain. Throughout most of his life, Cobain suffered from chronic bronchitis and intense physical pain due to an undiagnosed chronic stomach condition. According to The Telegraph, Cobain had depression. His cousin brought attention to the family history of suicide, mental illness, and alcoholism, noting that two of his uncles had died by suicide with guns. He used drugs heavily. His first drug experience was with cannabis in 1980 at age 13. He regularly used the drugs during adulthood. Cobain also had a period of consuming notable amounts of LSD, as observed by Marinder, and was prone to alcoholism and solvent abuse. Novoselic said he was really into getting fucked up, drugs, acid, any kind of drug. Cobain first took heroin in 1986, administered to him by a dealer in Tacoma, Washington, who had previously supplied him with oxycodone and aspirin. Cobain used heroin sporadically for several years. By the end of 1990, his use had developed into addiction. Cobain claimed that he was determined to get a habit as a way to self-medicate his stomach condition. It started with 3 days in a row of doing heroin, and I don't have a stomach pain. That was such a relief, he said. However, his longtime friend Buzz Osborne disputes this, saying that his stomach pain was more likely caused by his heroin use. He made it up for sympathy, and so he could use it as an excuse to stay loaded. Of course, he was vomiting. That's what people on heroin do. They vomit. It's called vomiting with a smile on your face. Cobain's heroin use began to affect Nirvana's Nevermind tour. During a 1992 photo shoot with Michael Levine, he fell asleep several times, having used heroin beforehand. Cobain told biographer Michael Ezerud, "They're not going to be able to tell me to stop, so I really didn't care." Obviously, to them, it was like practicing witchcraft or something. They didn't know anything about it, so they thought that any second I was going to die. The morning after the band's performance on Saturday Night Live in 1992, Cobain experienced his first near-death overdose after injecting heroin. Love resuscitated him. Prior to performance at the New Music Seminar in New York City on July 23, 1993, Cobain suffered another overdose. Rather than calling for an ambulance, Love injected Cobain with naloxone to resuscitate him. Cobain proceeded to perform with Nirvana, giving the public no indication that anything had happened. Following a tour stop at Terminal 1 in Munich, Germany, on March 1, 1994, Cobain was diagnosed with bronchitis and severe laryngitis. He flew to Rome the next day for medical treatment and was joined there by his wife, Courtney Love, on March 3, 1994. The next morning, Love awoke to find that Cobain had overdosed on a combination of champagne and rohypnol. Cobain was rushed to the hospital and was unconscious for the rest of the day. After 5 days, Cobain was released and returned to Seattle. Love later said that the incident was Cobain's first suicide attempt. On March 18, 1994, Love phoned the Seattle police, informing them that Cobain was suicidal and had locked himself in a room with a gun. Police arrived and confiscated several guns and a bottle of pills from Cobain, who insisted that he was not suicidal and had locked himself in a room to hide from Love. Love arranged an intervention regarding Cobain's drug use on March 25, 1994. The 10 people involved, including musician friends, record company executives, and one of Cobain's closest friends, Dylan Carlson. Cobain reacted with anger, insulting, and heaping scorn on the participants, and locked himself in the upstairs bedroom. However, by the end of the day, Cobain agreed to undergo a detox program. Cobain arrived at the Exodus Recovery Center in Los Angeles on March 30, 1994. Staff members were unaware of Cobain's history of depression and suicide attempts. When he was visited by friends, they saw no indication that Cobain was in a negative state of mind. He spent the day talking to counselors about his drug abuse and personal problems, happily playing with his daughter Frances. These interactions were the last time Cobain saw his daughter. The following night, Cobain walked outside to have a cigarette and climbed up over a 6-foot-high fence to leave the facility, which he had joked earlier in the day would be a stupid feat to attempt. He took a taxi to Los Angeles Airport and flew back to Seattle. On the flight, he sat near Duff McKagan of Guns N' Roses. Despite Cobain's animosity towards Guns N' Roses, Cobain seemed happy to see McKagan. McKagan later said that he knew from all of my instincts that something was wrong. Most of Cobain's friends and family were unaware of his whereabouts. On April 2 and 3, Cobain was spotted in numerous locations around Seattle. On April 3, Love hired private investigator Tom Grant to find Cobain. Cobain was not seen the next day. On April 7, amid rumors of Nirvana breaking up, the band pulled out of 1994 Lollapalooza Festival. On April 8, Cobain's body was discovered at his Lake Washington Boulevard home by electrician Gary Smith, who had arrived to install security system. Apart from a small amount of blood coming out of Cobain's ear, the electrician reported no visible signs of trauma and initially believed that Cobain was asleep until he saw the shotgun pointing at his chin. A suicide note was found, addressed to Cobain's childhood imaginary friend Bada, that stated that Cobain had not felt the excitement of listening to as well as creating music, along with really writing for too many years now. A high concentration of heroin and traces of diazepam were also found in his body. Although conductor David Woodard had built a dream machine for Cobain, reports that Cobain had been using the device excessively in days leading up to his suicide were contradicted by later findings. Cobain's body had been there for days. The coroner's report estimated he died on April 5, 1994, at the age of 27. Like and follow for more wild stories in rock music.